You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. The live stream. Detroit is different in Bridge Detroit. Local politics of Detroit. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Public Comment here. I am Khary Frazier of Detroit is Different, and we talk about a lot of the municipal politics of the city of Detroit from an update from a notebook from Malachi Barrett of Bridge Detroit that I'm going to be introducing you to, but I want to let you know. Thank you all so much for checking out more of Public Comment as we're getting more people to check us out live every Thursday, 8 a.m. We pre-record it, but it's streamed live. So make sure you continue to check this out and share with people. This episode, we're talking a whole lot about what's been going on in Southwest Detroit. Malachi, how you doing today?
I'm all right. I went out there on Monday and spent some time on scene trying to understand what was going on. It was really shocking to see that amount of water out on the street. It reminded me a lot of like the 2021 floods, but it was really concentrated within, a probably 10 block area of Southwest Detroit. So that's the big topic for this week as the mayor is dealing with a big emergency. There's a lot of, I think, attention on his response as he gets ready to run for governor. And then obviously there's the kind of human cost of trying to house and make sure that these around 400 or so houses have what they need to get through a pretty harsh winter. It's like 10 degrees outside right now.
Yeah.
When I came over today. So
oh yeah, it's definitely crisp. It hits you. So with that being said, let's get to some of these details that are inside of the show. All right. So, key question. What does this disaster reveal about housing stability and Detroit's priorities? 54 inches of water main break flooded homes near I-75, Roberto Clemente Learning Academy. Within that, up to 5 feet of water displaced 100 plus residents, freezing temperatures. The statistics, 398 homes impacted, 190 flooded basements, 174 without heat, 72 without power. Uninsured damages covered by the city and Great Lakes Water Authority. That's what's said to happen. Inspections of all the homes in 3 days. Flood damage claims. You can call this number 313-774-5261 for repairs and reimbursements. Ongoing investigations of the water main breaks. 2 heavy quotes here from Coleman Young II. You have to do more than just say this just happens. Santiago Romero, where that is the council representative over there. We have old infrastructure and climate change, but not enough money. Not enough money. As you see, Mayor Mike Duggan and Gary Brown of the Great Lakes Water Authority. You can kind of see a map of what was happening in the source area of where the break happened and how everything kind of flooded that whole footprint. And, flooding in the housing crisis and how you can respond to this. This is going to be really key as very soon we'll be talking a lot about the budget. And that seems to be how I at least look at this is what is available to help these challenges. Is there enough to address this? This goes right into those questions of unhoused residents in the city of Detroit. How do we address the homelessness plan that has been executed from the city of Detroit? Are there enough resources to address this? Also, the reality that most of the water system, as I've uplifted before here, is, it's the 1930s, it's the 1940s. Communities like mine for water main drain breaks, it happens. I know it's happened over here many a times. When we think of these types of temps, this is when pipes can burst. We're looking at, I don't know, some of these nights it's like 5 degrees, and what's going and what's flowing and how to address this. Is there enough to be implementing this as you uplifted in this article? that you shared that it is, I want to say, for like a mile of,
It costs $1.2 million to replace each mile
yeah,
of water main line. The trouble with this is it's expensive. Obviously,
yeah,
$1 million per mile. There's about
$92 million it will cost for the city, like about $92 million. And this is what
they've
Gary Brown.
allocated that for projects this fiscal year. So I was looking at the capital agenda, which basically is like all of the projects that the city kind of identifies as things that need to happen within the next 5 years. And they do it kind of on a cycle. So I was looking at what does it say about water main replacement projects. There are several of them spread throughout the city, in the pipeline for the next couple of years. Most of them are funded with federal money or bond money, which is kind of the tricky thing. I was trying to remember how many miles of actual pipe. I think it might be in my story somewhere. Yeah, 2,700 miles. So 2,700 miles of water distribution mains and 3,000 miles of sewer infrastructure is in Detroit system. So, not all of those 2,700 miles need to be dug up, but you can imagine how that
and
cost
and
increases
that's
so much.
and that was kind of the point. So let's be clear: the 92 million have been allocated, and then Gary Brown even speaks from Gleewa, which just makes sense. And it's one of those tough things, like a lot of repairs. You kind of don't know what needs to be repaired until it breaks, which is not the solution you really want to have a public official share with you. Being reasonable when you have an infrastructure that's old, technically all of it needs to be changed out. This has been the challenge that Flint has dealt with, and it's still not happened there. When we recognize the crisis that was happening in Flint, that a lot of the water warriors here in Detroit will uplift Monica Lewis Patrick. Definitely, a We the People will speak to this all the time, and it also stirs up the questions and the realities of people that live in those communities that feel as though a lot of those residents in Southwest Detroit have been looking to be displaced for years, with so much that has been going on around those developments. People speak to conspiracies that I don't necessarily know how conspiratory this is, but I do understand how residents feel, because so much, between pollution, between development, between things like this, also a lot of stuff like the ice raids, like you can live in that community and feel as though like, are we under attack here?
Mhm.
Because this is the other reality that starts coming about, because the solutions now are, okay, let's move these residents into hotels over a period of time, and then definitely you need to speak to what damages exists, which also speak to other challenges within homes, because how will those damages be honored? Well, you need to, what documentation will be needed to be proven? And I'm not even speaking to like knowing what these processes are, but um definitely when we think the FEMA spending that FEMA may have stepped up, we know under the current federal administration, I don't expect a lot of those resources to be present either. This becomes one of those challenges where if you are a public official, your relationships and your skills are really put to the test of how you address citizen needs right now.
Yeah, I think so. The city is committed to covering the uninsured damage. So basically, what will happen over the next couple of days? You can call that hotline number that Khary put out, that the city's put out on their website. That will get an inspector from BC to come to your house and assess the damage. They'll, go through. They'll see. They'll, accumulate. They'll tally, I guess is probably the better word, the cost of all the stuff that you lost. And most people we talk to, I mean, they lost everything in their basement.
I would
The
imagine.
water went up to the first floor. I mean, it was
Yeah.
frigid water. I don't know if freezing water does any additional damage, but the nice thing is it wasn't sewage like folks are kind of used to when it comes to flooding. But most people are going to have their basements replaced, and that
Well,
includes appliances and everything. So, like, can the city? What is the price tag going to be on this? Can the city actually afford it?
and
Will there be disputes over, well, this didn't qualify, but I think that it, should count as the damages, but the city
yeah.
inspector doesn't agree? There probably are going to be some of those kinds of disputes. I mean, the mayor and kind of the whole, government response has been really quick to say, like, this was a government failure, and so as a result of that, we are going to cover your damages. But I just don't know at what point does that goodwill go away when it becomes like a $50 million, $10 million, $5
50.
million. You know what I mean? So
I would also say, as a person that's lived in a home with pipes bursting, that's the other reality. Because it's so cold, this can cause other damages to that same house. And that's back to like it's the chicken or egg theory. Back to like this caused that to happen. Are you gonna take not just necessarily the harm that happened and everything else associated with it? Because if it's this cold and that was uplifted where it said, which that was an interesting stat that you provided, where it was like 74 people don't have power, 172 don't have heat. A lot of people without heat are staying, whereas people without power definitely need to go. A lot of the furnaces now use both, and it's more than just the furnaces now. Like, you know, I, this is definitely that time where that same problem, meaning the pipes bursting outside, can happen inside your house because it's that cold. And being a person that has dealt with replacing a whole system of pipes through a house where the pipes burst, and that's like a lot of wall damage. You definitely don't want to deal with mold. The water system that runs through your house is behind walls, so basically you're tearing out all the walls and you need to replace that. So with the city be covering expenses for that, because I mean, let alone we could be looking at one home's repair being upward of $75,000-$80,000 easy. And I'm giving like a low end, and God forbid if you have like a lot of those homes in the housing stock over there. I mean, these are like historically built homes. You can't just go to Home Depot and get a window for like some of those homes. They need to be like custom built and designed from specific contractors. You can't even necessarily buy in bulk, like, okay, let's just get a lot of this. Yeah, it's these are those challenges where definitely sitting, heavy as the crown. And I'm not necessarily giving an excuse. I'm just giving a reality of how do you deal with this, because one challenge can easily lead to another challenge. And we're already at February 20th, the date of this recording. It's still going to be some very cold days, and it's not like as what Gary Brown uplifted. You don't know the problem until it exists. So this could easily happen in another community. I remember during like the Thanksgiving season, it was like a whole neighborhood not far from there, but in Dearborn, where this same challenge presented itself. Because similar to Detroit and Flint, I would say a lot of places across America, these old industrial cities, these sewer systems were built in the 30s, the 20s, 30s, 40s. So it's full repair of something like that is I think that does take a federal a lot of federal support to understand this infrastructure that exists in this nation. And I do believe that that was something explored, which I don't know if you're going to pick up with this, and I'm speaking federal politics now, which I'm sure has been completely halted under the Trump administration. But the Build Back Better plan under the Biden administration, which I don't even know how much traction was connected to that. uh, Gary Brown was traveling into DC a couple of times to look at what could be connected to booster the Gleewood, infrastructure. What's successful, what connects, are these the solutions of like waiting until something happens and then responding to it? How fast is that response? That becomes all larger questions.
yeah, part of my goal is going to be trying to quantify how much we've spent on water main upgrades and infrastructure over the last couple of years, and kind of what is ahead. Gleewa also plays a big role in this as well. They lease the system from the city of Detroit, so those pipes were put in when Detroit owned the water system, but now the situation is very different. And I to be honest, don't fully understand Gleewa's role in maintenance of the system. So that's something I need to learn more about. But it's we're kind of caught in this kind of like vice of uh, the climate impact. Are our winters getting colder? Are these freezes in February, March, coinciding with also things kind of like getting warmer, and then you have like these cold snaps causing the ground to
It's
constrict and
yeah,
everything.
it's like because even when it happened to me, it's like the ice goes in and it expands. It's like you basically you're yeah, the ground, not just the ground, inside the pipe itself. So it's like, it's expanding and shrinking, expanding and streaking, and then all it takes is like really a crack this big when we got water pumping through it.
Yeah. And we don't know 100%. I mean, we can assume that it probably had something to do with, that the freezing, but we don't 100% know yet. They were just able to get the water turned off yesterday and pumped out, and they were excavating the area so they could go down and actually look at what caused the break. So a little early to say, but generally water main breaks happen because of this freezing of the ground. So you have this happening, and Gary Brown has said that even newer pipes can break because of that. So it's not necessarily if we upgrade all of our pipes, then water main breaks go away. It's going to be weather related, and it seems like the conditions for the weather are getting worse. And
Yeah,
then you have that coupled with the fact that Detroit really would struggle to pay for replacing those pipes, on its own in the first place. And so we rely on this federal money. There seems to be less of an appetite under the Trump administration to direct funds. His first administration was kind of notoriously not interested in infrastructure, although they had like an infrastructure week every year or whatever. He actually had one of the executive orders that Trump had signed, just getting into office, was to pause any unspent funding from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So I'm not sure what that, means for any dollars that, came to Detroit through those programs, but those are, both infrastructure programs. So in a world where the weather is getting worse and the money from the federal government is not coming, where does that leave us? We're kind of stuck in this situation. And to Coleman Young's point, like, people don't want to hear that water main breaks happen, and sorry, this one just happened to be particularly bad, and there's
no,
really not much we can do, and we have to,
no.
we're gonna make sure everyone is you know warm and fed, but sorry, these kinds of things are just gonna happen. I mean, I think that's frustrating for a lot of people. So I don't have the answer either, but
Yeah, and also living in a hotel is an option for possibly, I mean, just the basement cleanup, and some of this cleanup has to wait till this stuff thaws out in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So it's that challenge as well. I just showed the picture. I mean, even before what could be explored, and in my mind, I definitely think it's the same challenge that always does present itself around this time of the year. Um, and how do you prepare yourself more for that? The question I have for you, in this, from what residents were saying and speaking to, do residents have some ideas of what would be like a reasonable solution to this challenge? Has anything been uplifted from
mm,
them?
yeah, particular solutions is difficult. I know a lot of people came to city council yesterday to demand more action around our homelessness network, and turn some of these vacant homes into temporary shelters or turn them into housing. I mean, this is really being
When
connected
when you
to
say
the
vacant,
affordable.
when
Yeah.
you say vacant homes, do you mean the homes that have been the structures that have been built and are available but just don't have renters yet, or do you mean a lot of the housing stock that is a part of land banking like needs a lot of love and repair?
Yeah, I think the criticism would be that we have a lot of vacant homes that we either tore down unnecessarily or are in that land bank pipeline and haven't yet,
Yeah,
gotten into the hands of people. That comes from a statistic that there are 116 vacant houses for every person, every unhoused person in Detroit, which is like one of the worst ratios in the country. And I don't know the full methodology of that, but that's what was cited yesterday by one of the public commenters. Um, so yeah, no, I mean, this coupled with the death of the two children who were homeless and were staying in the casino parking garage with their mother and grandmother just a week ago, right? I think um, a lot of folks were connecting those two issues in saying that, you know, we've had a failure of the emergency housing network, and now we've kind of had a failure of the infrastructure problem, which displaced a lot of people. And none of them are going to shelters. It sounds like they're being put up in hotels paid for by the city. Um, So it's not really a test of the city's like homeless resource network necessarily, but it's, displaced a couple hundred people. And I think the overall feeling is that, residents are being displaced for a variety of reasons, whether it's the increase of housing costs, whether it's environmental factors, whether it's infrastructure failures like this. And I think people that have been kind of watching what's been going on over the last couple of years see this as aligned, right? Like those are all kind of symptoms of larger problems that people are having to live through. So it was interesting for people to hear that. I mean, there's just a lot of like urgency being placed on housing in the city and affordable housing in particular.
Yeah, I definitely would say that. And a lot of those things, I can see all things being interconnected, and also what's happening with property taxes. Also, what's provided with tax abatements. It's limitations of what can be done, and it's back to like who are the people that seem to be getting some of the most considerations from our public servants, because it seems as though sometimes everyone in the public is not necessarily as available to the service of our public servants. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And thank you for tuning in once again for another public comment. It's going to be more and more, as one of the big things that I was still waiting for, that it seems as though has gone past once again, was I was waiting on the tax assessor's report too. And this seems to be another year where residents could have had some more substantiated data that comes from the city council to challenge what their tax bills are if they're being overassessed again. And for whatever reason, that report has not presented itself,
Yep.
which is another one of those things when you see stuff like this, because I'm sure some of those residents are people that have paid their taxes. So you pay your taxes and you still deal with this stuff. You may be overpaying for your taxes and dealing with this. And it's other people that are provided tax benefits.
It seems like the intent, and I've been so confused about this. I reached out to the council president's office again this week about getting the study. Apparently, they don't have it. The council doesn't have it, but it's been given to the administration, the assessor's office. So I need a FOIA for it and see if I can get it. I don't know. I guess the assessor needs to review it or something before giving it to council. But the whole intent was that this would be used so that council could find houses that were overassessed and challenge them in time for the board of review deadline, which is Friday this week. So I mean, it just seems like they missed another opportunity to have some government. This people can file their own appeals, but this was supposed to be kind of a more informed effort, with this study and with the partnership of the council to recommend properties that should have been looked at again, and it just didn't happen for the second year in a row.
And this is where, back to that, consideration does not seem to necessarily stand on behalf of the public, because for whatever reason, you know how to file a FOIA request. I imagine the average citizen has no idea how to go through all of that.
And by the time I get it, a month could go by anyway, so I'm not even expecting really to see it before this
before
deadline.
Friday.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. Well, I'm definitely going to look forward to that FOIA report. That'll be definitely past the deadline. And these are the times where it's like, okay, I believe that, you know, council couldn't take a stance to say until this report is delivered from the assessor's office, we're going to prolong the deadline at least 30 days past the report coming back. I mean, I don't know. These are just the types of questions that I sometimes have. And this leads to a lot of people always wondering, why have people lost faith in some of these systems? Because that seems very logical, especially when we've seen a lot of developments have deadlines moved back to God knows when for what needs to be delivered on behalf of corporate interests, but necessarily not on behalf of resident interests. So when residents seem to matter more, you're going to have, I believe, a more engaged general population and people. And here you have a very apathetic base because of things like what you just uplifted. But another episode of Public Comment. Check out Detroit is Different. Malachi, let the people know.
BridgeDetroit.com is where you can find all of our stuff. It is free, no paywall. We are a nonprofit newsroom serving residents of Detroit. This conversation is always based on my public comment or my city council notebook, which comes out Wednesday mornings. That's also free. You can sign up online at bridgedetroit.com. We are going to be launching a new show similar to this, deeper conversations about the mayoral race for 2025. We're calling it Detroit Next, and Khary is producing that with us in partnership with Detroit is Different. So go subscribe to Bridge Detroit's YouTube channel to see that when it drops. I think we'll probably have some content for you guys in the next week or so. Since some more things are happening. We've got like 8 candidates now in the mayoral race.
Yes.
Solomon Kinlock is jumping in tonight.
Yeah.
Expected to, but probably will 100%.
It's like the Royal Rumble.
That's right. So we're gonna have a lot of reporting throughout the year. So just come find us on bridgedetroit.com. It's a good place to look first.
All right. Peace. You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. The live stream. Detroit is Different and Bridge Detroit. Local politics of Detroit.